Yeah.
We thought we'd do a bit of a bonus, like Sunday morning session, just to share with you a bit about kind of how we quit alcohol, why we quit alcohol, and ask you guys if you've got any questions or anything you wanted to talk about, to share with us, connect with us, ask away. We're going to talk for about 45 minutes or so, and just thought we'd come on this morning to share with you as a little extra, because we normally only do these on a Friday here in the group. So Dave, do you want to, maybe for anyone who doesn't know who you are, what you do, share a little bit about where you're at? I know you're huge on Instagram, which is where I first connected with you.
Yeah, so I'm now, well, actually, I looked at my app this morning in bed. I woke up at 5 o'clock, and I'm nearly 500 days, which is a big landmark for me. It's like a year was epic for me, and I just went mad on the 7th of Jan this year. But 500 days was the original goal that I set myself. From January the 7th last year, I received a text message from a friend, and he had obviously seen that I was going downhill with everything, and in my relationship, my health, I looked terrible, and I was drinking silly amounts, like 3-4 bottles of wine a night. My marriage was shot, my relationship with the kids was shot, and I decided on the 7th of Jan last year that was it. And the guy who sent me a text message, I met him that night, and he said, "Look, let's do it together for 3 months." And I shook his hand and I said, "Yeah, let's go for it." But what I found after a week or so, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to be back exactly where I am after 3 months. So I set myself 500 days. And like you, Simon, once you give up for a few weeks, you just think, do you know what, that's it. I'm not going back to that again. So I created my page on Instagram, Sober Dave, and that is my community on there. That's, I've tried AA and that doesn't work for me. It works for hundreds of thousands of others, but not for me. And I meet people like yourself. I mean, how many people do we know, Simon, now through just sharing our journey on Instagram? Like
Crazy.
I didn't get to see you at the Mindful Drink. I saw you, but we didn't get to chat. But it was unbelievable, wasn't it?
It was incredible. I mean, I wanted to come over and say hi to you, but you were being mobbed by all your groupies, and loads of people wanted to talk to me and connect with me. My dad, who's on now, actually, he was with me. He came along to the Mindful Drinking Festival, which is where I think he first kind of started exploring becoming sober curious. But the community's amazing, and funny enough, one of my friends who's on, I won't name names, although I already said hi to her, but AA worked amazingly well for her, and she kind of encouraged me to go to some meetings, and I was like really reluctant, and maybe it's I've just made some assumptions about it, but it just didn't feel like a good fit for me. But you're right, it does it does work for people. So I think it's important not to just dismiss it and think, oh no, it's this, it's that, and have these preconceived ideas. But I found a fit for me, and you found a fit for you as well.
Yeah, and you know what? I look at it slightly different, and we've got to realise, like you, Simon, that we've all got our own path we tread. We're all different. We've all got different backgrounds, and I like that thing. Like if someone says you're an alcoholic, it makes me feel a bit depressed. And I like to say, well, I was dependent on drink, and I'm not anymore. I'm not dependent on it, and also my way of thinking is discovery rather than recovery, because my whole life has turned a corner. And I said on our Zoom meeting yesterday that before it's like looking for a straw. I was very blinkered in my life, I just saw what I wanted to see, which was alcohol. But now my whole life has expanded, and I'm just doing so, with your help as well, so much more in my life. It's exciting. I woke up this morning at 5. Normally I'll be absolutely hanging. I don't know if you saw my post today, but it was a comparison to 2 years ago, waking up on a Sunday compared to today, and even though it was silly o'clock 5, I felt fresh. I've done a lot of paperwork, and I'm ready for my day,
Yeah,
And
and it
you're
never
like that,
gets
aren't you?
boring.
You're always up early, aren't you? Because quite often we message each other at 6 in the morning.
Yeah, it's the best time to get me. You have that kind of period of 2 or 3 hours where there's like peace and you can get
Yeah.
so much done. I've already recorded 2 YouTube videos this morning. I've been busy.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So when your drinking was, you talked a bit about how it was out of control, like 2, 3 bottles of wine. I mean, I know you had a period where you ended up homeless, didn't you, for a period of time?
Well, I made myself homeless because, cut a long story short, I lived on my own for 10 years. And in that 10 years, I was in my 30s, 40s. I stopped going to the pub and I started to drink at home, which was my downfall, really. I no longer wanted to go to the pub because I couldn't get drunk enough. So I started to drink wine at home, put on some weight, and then I decided to drink vodka. And where that was half a bottle of vodka with a bottle of wine, it ended up most nights I would drink a litre of vodka with beers at the beginning, and I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have to go to work. And I'd go down and like look at the bottle and I'd go, how much is left in the bottle? And sometimes there was like that much, but sometimes there was none. And I thought, I've got to drive to work now and meet clients at like 8 in the morning. I must be reeking of
Yeah.
vodka. And I met my wife. I was a handyman on 60 Minute Makeover for 10 years. And we actually did her house on the telly. And we met. It was a whirlwind romance. And I sold my house and moved in. And that's when the trouble really started, because then I was accountable. Like I could
Yeah.
no longer just drink how I wanted to drink. And I started hiding it. And one day, we got triplets now, and they were only small. And she said, I'm going to take them over the common to go to the swings and that. I was making a roast dinner, and I'd hid a box of wine just down the side of the fridge and put a load of carrier bags on top of it. And by the time she came back, I'd drunk a whole box of wine. And it was things like that she really realized that, what is this? I didn't even know that he had a problem because I kept it from her, which is really bad, really terrible, because I should have addressed it either before I moved in or talked to her about it. And then that I'd had a big row, and I ended up going to Eastbourne, and I had a 4-day bender of sleeping on the beach with bottles of vodka. I went to the pub all day. And that's really when I imagine, like, not everyone has their rock bottom, but that was my rock bottom, because I was on double dose antidepressant and I just went mad, basically. And when I came back, I was, like they say, your doctor's appointment's 10 minutes. I was in there for an hour, and I came out and there was literally the waiting room was heaving. But I think that was the start of me beginning to realize that I can no longer carry on like this, because I'm going to lose everything. And that was at Easter 2 years ago, and then it was the January after that I eventually decided enough was enough.
So between that Easter, that's a really powerful story. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure that a lot of people will kind of relate to it as well. And I think that's one of the things I love about you, is you're so relatable. And I think that's why so many people follow you, because they hear your story and they can see elements of it in themselves. But obviously between that Easter and the January, what was going on there? Like, you're obviously still drinking. So did you just have this internal conflict, or were you working on getting ready to change?
Simon, that year for me was hell. I had a Rolex stolen. A 10-gram watch was stolen. My mum became ill and died that year. I started a counselling course level 3 that year, and I just couldn't keep up with the homework. It was a disaster. So my drinking didn't ease after Easter. I imagine, really, I started like we all do, like in the beginning, with 2 or 3 weeks of moderate drinking. Then I started to ramp it up to how it was before. And it was just after Christmas that my wife came into the office where I am now, and she sat there and she looked 10 years older. And she just said, I really just can't do this anymore. And she went into the house, and then the kids were all playing up, and she just put her head in her hands like that. And when I saw her, I thought, what am I doing? it really hit me hard what I had brought into her life, you know. And what I'm about to tell you is when we actually met, she was diagnosed with cancer as well. So how we actually got to know each other was in the chemotherapy room, you know.
Wow.
So we got to know each other really intensely, really, really quickly. Um, so the months after Easter didn't get any better, but it was that when I just saw she was shattered, and I just thought, it was the crossroads, you know, what way do I go? Do I go this way and carry on drinking, or do I actually get my act together and stop? And luckily for me, I stopped, and that's where it's almost like a rebirth, you know, about that.
Well, yeah, it really is. I think sometimes it's a case that the the sort of pain from being stuck gets outweighed by that desire to change. It's almost like the scales tip to such a point where being stuck just sort of becomes no longer an option. And yeah,
Yeah,
changing feels hard, but it actually feels easier than staying where you are.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's that sort of voice in your head that you have of, I used to say to her, I know I've got to do something about it. I know I've got to address it. I know I've got to do something about it. And it's like the boy cry wolf, you know, like after a while she's like, well, I've heard this all before. But it's almost like I was talking to myself, you
Yeah.
know, and an internal dialogue of actually, Dave, mate, you've got to really do. And at that point, I thought, well, what do I do? I love drinking that much. Do I moderate? Do I do this? And even I tried to moderate, and it took one day before I started bringing an extra bottle of wine in. And one bottle of wine's enough. But I used to say to her, look, I've only bought one bottle of wine in. That's all I'm going to have tonight. Like I'm some champion. And I tried that, and it was almost like, well, that hasn't touched the sides, and I just want more now, and I haven't got any more. And that makes me feel really depressed. So I went to bed with a hump. And the next day, those little plastic miniatures you can get in the supermarket, I started chucking them in my pockets, in my briefcase. And I'd say to her, right, I'm going to have a shower. I'd take a little glass of wine in, just so I smell of wine anyway. And I used to chuck 3, 4 of them down before I even got in the shower. Come out, and she'd say, you sure you've only had a bottle of wine tonight? Oh yeah, it's really gone to my head. Isn't it funny? Like just a load of rubbish come out, you know? You was a wine
Yeah.
drinker, wasn't you?
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing how it just over time it just escalates and takes control and you start putting it in front of everything, you know, even to the extent there of having a shower, you know, wine's running the show and just takes over. It's incredible. So
Yeah.
what I guess what a lot of people want to know is like, how did you actually quit? Did you just say that's it? Or did you read books? Did you surround yourself with certain tools and support?
At first, it was almost like a random day. I didn't plan to do it. It was I got this text message from my friend, and he's a very spiritual man, you know, and it was almost like he had a sixth sense in, Dave, I need to help you with this. So for the first few days I didn't do anything. It was just basic willpower. And a friend of mine said, look, come to an AA meeting with me. And at first it felt really empowered and great, but then after a while it wasn't really serving me, you know. It just didn't feel right for me, so I stopped that. And when I started my Instagram page, I just started sharing my journey on a daily basis, you know, of being really truthful about the good days, the bad days. And I found within a couple of weeks, I was really gathering a community because people could relate to me. I started to read the odd book because you got more time on your hands, haven't you? I was going
Mm.
to bed at 8 just so I wasn't having those temptations, you know. I find, as we've talked about before, that keeping yourself busy is such a brilliant thing in the beginning. So your old mind's not always, oh, I could do with a drink, could do with a drink. So yeah, there's I'll tell you of a great book that I could recommend anyone, the Sober Survival Guide. It's
Oh yeah, I know. That's a great book. I think yeah, there
oh,
it is.
who's the author? Simon Chap. Oh mate,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
anyone wants to
It's one of the best. It's
yeah,
an
yeah,
Amazon
it
number
is the
two
best.
bestseller.
Yeah. And to be honest, Simon, I went to a sober event with Janie Lee Grace, and I met the Rock Sober boys there, Claire Pooley. And when I walked in, I was like, a fish out of water. When I walked out, I was like, what is this? Is fantastic. All these like-minded people. It's packed the room. I met Millie from Sober Girls Society and Scott, boy who drank too much and they've become really good friends, all of them now. You know, I go out socially with them now, and it feels like a complete new life. And as we've discussed before, our old friends almost go by the wayside, don't they? Because it's their life is drinking, and you start not to get invited in that. But to be honest, I don't really want to be invited to that anymore. We got so many things that we've got outside lockdown now that are just brilliant. And I've even booked a sober holiday in the end of July. I don't know what's happening with that, but with Lauren from We Love Lucid. And you was discussing with Millie on a live, wasn't you, about you don't even have to be sober to enjoy being with a sober person, because you're quite like-minded, aren't you? So your thing was boot camp, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's important to understand. I mean, I probably drifted apart from one or two of my friends where the relationship was, it just revolved around alcohol. Yet a lot of my friends, we just got changed up what we do. So, you know, instead of going out drinking in the pub all evening, we might meet for a lunch or a coffee or something like that. And then because I had more energy, more motivation, I joined a boot camp. And sure, a lot of the people there drink, but alcohol's not the sort of center of the activity. So it's not about alcohol. And I made some really good, great friends there who I'm, you know, still great friends with now. And some of them have even reached out to me and shared concerns about their own drinking. In fact, it seems everybody, when you talk about it, I mean, you know this yourself, whenever you talk about it, someone generally will reach out to you and tell you they're worried about their own drinking.
Yeah. And it's when they shame in the beginning, your decision to give up alcohol, the sober shaming. And 9 times out of 10, it's their own stuff anyway, isn't it? Because really deep down inside, they know probably they're drinking too much or it's affecting their relationships. And I mean, I was thinking, do you remember that video I put on Instagram where I drank 5 pints? I went, where were you saying about alcohol defines your relationships? We were going to the London Tattoo Convention at Docklands, and we started drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning. You know, now we were drinking and we had a big fry up, and then we had 4 pints of Stella in the morning, went to the tattoo convention, went all day drinking, and then that night went to this pub by St Catherine's Dock, and I was bet 50 quid that I can drink 5 pints in 5 minutes, and I drank 5 pints in 3.5 minutes. And I got up and went to go to the toilet, and I fell over. But I got up, and when I look at the picture of me in that or the video, I was absolutely smashed. And you think, God, what is it doing to your brain? Do you know what I mean? You look back sometimes, and that's such a good thing to do when you're sober and there's the odd time. I mean, I don't get it, I don't think you, but in the first few months we think, oh God, I miss a beer and that. And you look back at that and you think, oh, I do not want to go back to that, trust me. And like, you got a good tip, haven't you, of winding the tape forward to how it would be if you...
Yeah, that works well. I mean, having some people use, like, they call it 5-5-5, where you think, well, you know, if you're having a craving for a drink, you just think, well, how's this going to be in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days? Yeah, but I also would suggest fast forwarding it like a movie to the next day, see how that's going to be, and actually play the whole thing through. You know, how from taking a drink to how the evening will go. You know, it might start off well, but then you might get argumentative, snappy, grumpy, how it's going to look in the morning, and play it forward, how it will be in 5 months, 5 years from now. I mean, can anyone think of, I bet there's nobody listening who, if you still drink, is drinking less now than you were 5 years ago. I certainly didn't. It just went up and up and up. So it's just continuing the cycle. So yeah, playing it forward's great. The biggest thing that worked for me was actually, it was reading books, listening to podcasts, joining online programs that kind of held my hand through those first days. And I just reframed the whole thing. I got really excited about it. I mean, I do marathon running, as you know, and I just sort of got that same mindset, like as if I'd signed up for a marathon. Every day was going to be like a training run. I was going to grow
Yeah.
stronger. And I guess the goal, the finish line, was to just feel like alcohol was insignificant and unimportant to me. And that is much better than sort of, oh, I've had something taken away from me. I feel deprived, because I don't feel deprived. I feel like I've gained everything in my life.
Do
And
you
I know
know
you
how I
do.
look at it? And we're all different, but I look at it like a relationship that I had. Like, I met this beautiful, voluptuous woman who lured me in and made me fall in love with her. And the first few years was so alluring, and I couldn't stop thinking about her, and everything was great. Whenever we went out, bless you, whenever we
Thanks.
went out, it was fantastic. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And gradually, the more it went on, the more the relationship started to change. And
Yeah.
at the end of it, it was bossing me about, it was telling me what to do, it was controlling my life. And then every now and again, I'd say, I don't want to see my life again, but she was too strong and powerful and wooed me back over. And then one day I booted her out. And where the cravings come in, like the knocking on the door, you want me really, you want me, come and get me. I think about all the bad times rather than the good times. And I think, actually, you can piss off, because I don't want you. You weren't serving me in my life anymore. And I divorced alcohol. I
Yeah.
literally divorced it. And I compare it. Sorry, darling, wherever you are, my ex-wife, is that it was a pure misery towards the end, and I could no longer go back to that. And that's what keeps me sane and sober, really, is thinking about how it was then, and, as you say, plan it forward how it would be if I let that open the door and she walked in the morning. I wake up and, oh, what have I done? And that is what, just every day I think how enriched my life is now, and how, meeting guys like yourself, and how many people do we know through this sober world is fantastic. People say there's no life. People, the usual thing, what is there without a drink? There's nothing. This is my life. And in fact, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
It's so much, isn't there?
It's crazy. Yeah, it is. And the thing is, unless you try it, you're never going to know. You're never going to experience it. And to take that relationship breakup kind of analogy one stage further, I did exactly the same thing. I actually wrote a breakup letter. It's on my blog if anyone wants to read it.
Oh,
And
that's
I think
brilliant.
at that point where you feel truly free, like it's truly over, it's very empowering to actually write a letter to say, mine started, "Dear Miss Shiraz," we're through kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
and that other tactic around having some visual reminders. I know some people who've got videos on their phone of when they were really drunk, like you talked about how you fell over after the 5 pints in 3.5 minutes. Some people have got videos on their phone that they would just cringe if they saw, and they've made a
Yeah.
non-negotiable agreement with themselves. If I'm ever going to drink again, I promise to myself I'll at least look at that first. And I think that can be a great thing. Or even keeping a photo or writing a letter to yourself in an envelope for when in the early days that you do get some storm clouds rolling, and you do have to learn to stand in the storm and use a little bit of willpower, but it just gets
Yeah.
better and better. I'm just going to look at some of the comments because I can see a bunch out of the corner of my eye. So Emma says, I do owe her a coffee. She's the friend of mine who's been. I don't know how long you've been sober, Emma, if you're still on, but we're about the same. I'm sure you must be over 2 years now. So she's doing great. And Dawn, you're a new joiner. Nice to see you. Stacey, you said you're on day 7, alcohol free, and you're in the live alcohol experiment. I'm coaching in the live alcohol experiment this evening, so I'll see you there. So much has clicked and sunk in, and I'm feeling really determined. That's great. Kimberly, good to see you. And there's a bunch of people on. Emily, you say the best thing is AA meetings. And again, I think with sobriety, here's another analogy. Dave loves an analogy. It's like going to a shoe shop and you have to try all these different things on and see what fits for you, because different things fit for different people, and it's a bit like a Cinderella moment when you find something, oh yeah, it's perfect. It fits me perfectly. And, and if it works, amazing. And, different things, you've got to kind of try a bit of everything. It's like going to a buffet, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think there's a big stigma around it as well, that they, it's like them or us sort of thing. And it's absolutely not that, because whatever way you decide to do this journey is brilliant. There's a question here. I don't know where it's from. It doesn't come up. It says, "Where do you find like-minded people?" You said about a sober convention, but I mean, there's loads of sober events. I mean, join Club Soda
Oh yeah,
on
Sharon
Instagram.
asked that.
Sharon, yeah. Follow Join Club Sober on Instagram. Follow Sober and Social Emily. There's so many things that we go to, aren't there, Simon?
Oh,
I've
it's
actually had
crazy.
I've held events as well, and I've got to refund people today. I got an email because of this lockdown that it's not going to happen, but I'm going to be holding one as soon as we get back. I held one in the Redemption Bar at Christmas. There's the Mindful Drinking Festival twice a year, isn't there? And that's heaving. I mean, in January there was over 10,000 people there. There's loads and loads of ways of finding things, and what I said before, Simon, is that every single person I've met that have become sober are so humble and so
Yeah.
genuine. Do you find that?
Yeah,
It's
it's
just,
crazy. It's the least judgmental kind of community of people I've ever met. So friendly, always help each other out. I mean, as with anything, you get the odd idiot, but they're very few and far between. There's lots of I've just made so many friends. Like the
yeah,
Mindful Drinking Festival. I remember not long after I quit, I went up there and I had a backpack on because I knew I was going to buy lots of botanical new zero alcohol drinks. I had a great time and I was getting photos. I got a selfie with Claire Pooley and stuff like that. And then, my God, the next year I came back and I was talking on the stage and people were coming up to me asking for selfies. And the same must have happened for you. It's just what an amazing journey. Really was. And the other thing as well, if you're not in the UK, because we do have quite a lot of them here, This Naked Mind Live is in Denver in September. I don't know if it's going to go ahead this year, but I talked on stage there last year, and I'm meant to be talking on stage there this year. But that's an awesome 2-day event, and the people and all connecting with each other and having breakthroughs over the weekend. That's more of a structured learning weekend. Like, it's more, I'd call it more of a convention than a meetup.
yeah.
And also the website Meetups, I think it's meetups.com, is another great place if you're looking for new friends, new activities. That's an awesome place to look. What other comments have we got? Zach, you said never stop doing your homework about it. Have lots of hobbies to keep your mind busy, and also keep your hands busy. I think we mentioned this yesterday, Dave. I think did you say about that, or was it Scott? It might have been Scott, actually.
It's important though, isn't it? It's like, and like alcohol-free drinks either suit you or not. And if you feel like it's triggering, don't have them. But the whole thing about opening a bottle and pouring it in a nice glass. What I've learned though is I went to the Brewdog opening thing, and it was actually on my soberversary. And the first thing she said, "Would you like a pint?" And that immediately triggered me, because since I've given up drinking, I've only ever drunk bottles. And I said, actually, no, I don't. Can I have a half? So it's avoiding your triggers as well. If you're aware of what isn't good for you. And I sat there and I thought, that was interesting, because I learned from it. I thought, oh, a year on, and already there's another thing that's new. So it's an ongoing journey that you have to keep pinching yourself every now and again and thinking, actually, this doesn't end. It is an ongoing thing that you have to check in with yourself all the time. But I think life becomes more normal, doesn't it? It's like,
it's funny because I had a similar experience. There's a pub near me, and we went there a few months ago, and they had Heineken 0.0 on tap, and I did have a pint of it, and it did feel really strange, and I was worried. It was, I actually felt a bit of anxiety around, is this definitely zero alcohol? Is it okay? Yeah. But it was really good. I've been meaning to go back there, and I think another wonderful thing that happens when you quit drinking is you become so much more aware of your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts. You become mindful of them, even to the extent there, you recognize that as a trigger, or you might call it a cue, not like the cues we've got outside the supermarket, CUE. And it's the trigger that then can lead to the craving. The craving leads to the behavior. The
Yeah.
behavior leads to us having a reaction in the reward center of our brain. And when we do that, it goes right back to the start because we want to keep repeating the action. And you can break the cycle, like you've proven.
Yeah, it's the domino effect, isn't it? If you press that domino and it starts going like that, you've got to stop it and go, actually, I'm aware of this. I've acknowledged it because I've also find just blanking it isn't good for you
No, you
either.
can't
It's good
suppress
to
it.
sit with your feelings. I mean, last spring when the weather changed, and this is the first time I was sober in the warm weather, and I looked over there, and there's my local pub with a beautiful beer garden. They do homemade burgers in the garden. It's always Ramo, and I thought, oh my god, that's really alluring, and I literally had to check in with myself, and this is where the willpower comes in. And I thought, just go for a walk, but walk in the opposite direction and go for a long, long walk. And that it was about 45 minutes. And at the end of it, I was thinking about why I was feeling like that, how I was feeling. By the end of it, I thought, do you know what? I've done it and I feel all right now. But that was by acknowledging how I was feeling rather than just going, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to check in with yourself as well.
I completely agree. I did a video on my YouTube channel and I call it the elephant tactic, but some people don't like to use an elephant. And it really is just about visualizing those uncomfortable thoughts, like a big elephant's just walked in the room. And instead, you can't push an elephant out. Instead of trying to
No.
push it out and suppress it, you look it in the eye calmly and you say, I'm not going for a ride today. I'm not interested. I'm not playing. And almost visualize it until the elephant gets bored and walks out of the room. And that weakens the power. So it's the same
Yeah.
sort of thing. You have to sort of face it rather than trying to suppress it. Because when you try and suppress it, it comes back, 10 times louder.
It does, and especially as you're not numbing your feelings as well. If all the time before you was just chucking the beer down, and you never used to think about things, but when you're sober, you do. So that's why it's even more important to acknowledge what is going on. And for me, that is such a strong part of my journey because um, that's dealt with now. And I might have new things coming up for me, but I feel so strong now that I feel, well, do you know what? I've dealt with that. I've dealt with that. I've dealt with that. And now what is going to touch me that, even lockdown, we know ourselves of people that have been sober and they've just gone, I can't do this. I'm having a drink. So we get through this, and anyone that's actually become sober during this is a huge landmark for the future
Yeah.
because
I mean, I'd agree actually. Anyone who's got sober or stayed sober through this, well, if you can do it during this, you could do it during anything. I remember working, it's a long story, I'll keep it short, but I used to work for a company and they decided to launch an estate agency. And just after we opened, the recession hit. And the owner of the business said, well, if we can do it during the recession, in the real estate market, if we can do it during a recession, we can thrive. We can do it during any time, and it did survive it. And it's kind of similar, like during this lockdown or a time when there's heightened anxiety and tough stuff going on. If you can do it now, well, you're going to thrive. Although I know some people are anxious that, okay, well, I'm making the lockdown work for my sobriety, but what about when it's over? All my friends are going to want parties and all the rest of it. What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, you know what? I was thinking about that myself because I had something popped up on my Facebook the other day, and a guy who didn't drink through lockdown, but I didn't realise that he doesn't drink at home. So, do you know what I mean? There's some
Yeah,
social people that just they socialise in the pub, and that is their drinking. Where me, I drink at home,
same
and
here.
yeah, and it's like, oh well, when the pub's open, it'd be a different story, and it's made me rethink it, and it's thinking again, like you say, wind it forward, get the sober toolbox, because why go through this whole period that could be life changing? You could look back at the lockdown in a real positive way and go, do you know what? That is the period of my life that I actually stopped drinking, you know, and rather than think, oh, I've been sober for 4 months, but as soon as that pub opens, I'm going to be straight in there again. It's like think about it now and how different your life could be. how much improved you get. It's almost like an apprenticeship now, isn't it? That you're giving yourself the opportunity and think, you know, and if there's parties and that, as we discuss always, take everything small all the time. You know, parties, let them know now that you're not drinking. And when it comes to it, say, do you know what? I'm really enjoying the feeling of not drinking at the moment. I'm going to continue to do it, rather than that big announcement of, hey, everyone, I'm sober. And then they're going to go, well, not everyone, but they might say, what do you mean you're sober? I thought it's just for the lockdown. Stepping stones, small stepping stones, and deal with it at the time, but be prepared.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And also, you know, setting, we talked about it yesterday on the sober sessions, which if you don't join the sober sessions, it's live every Saturday. There's another Facebook group. You can actually find it in this group. It's a link group. I'll drop a link to it as well, because if you enjoy this, you'll definitely enjoy that. But with those sort of things as well, you know, setting your own boundaries about what you're okay with. I stayed away from boozy events for a couple of months after I quit drinking. I would go and do things with my son rather than go out with my friends when they were going to the pub. I waited until I felt truly ready. There's some serious power in being able to say no. You know, the joy of missing out instead of the fear of missing out. I mean, that is something to practice and work on, because it's wonderful. Even this New Year's Eve, I put a picture on my Instagram New Year's Eve of me tucked under a blanket on my sofa, embracing the joy of not being out on New Year's Eve, you know, being drunk, not being able to get home with the rain on me and feeling sick and stuff like that. It's awesome.
And New Year's Day and Christmas Day as well. But
well, yeah, that's
and the power of no as well. Because what I found when I became sober, I started to get my self-respect back and that. And where before I'd be sort of persuaded into doing things I didn't really want to do, but I was like, sod it, it'd be all right. There were things that I didn't want to do. So there was a party at a pub with a free bar. And I just said, do you know what? I don't want to go. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't want to go. I feel like there might be temptation there, and I just don't want to give that to myself. I'm not ready for that. And the power of no, it's your choice. And like, as you say, and everyone else we talk to on the Zoom panel, like, if you do go, you can leave. And most people don't know you bloody gone anyway. You know, and it is boring a little bit, isn't it? After people have had 2 or 3 drinks and you can see them gradually change and say the same jokes and whatever, and you're thinking, do you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. And you go to the toilet, slip out the back door, and then the next day they don't even know you've gone anyway.
And I can vouch for that, because the first work Christmas party I went to, I think the biggest tip I'd give anyone with social events is, if you're going to go, have an exit strategy. And Dave's absolutely right. I just did exactly what you said. I went off to the toilet. It was about 11:30 and I went. Nobody even mentioned it the next day, because nobody even noticed, because they were all so drunk. And it was just the point where people were repeating themselves, spraying my face with spit, you know, talking loudly, not listening. And I thought, this just kind of isn't as fun any longer. So I'm going to go home. And that joy of driving home and getting into your crisp bed sheets and waking up hangover free, it never, ever gets tired. It's amazing. I'm just going to go through a few more comments. So Judy says she's well and truly got rid of the wine witch. Judy, you're doing amazing. I obviously connect with you regularly on your journey, and it's just so awesome. She's had a full-on mindset shift and is just embracing the joy of being alcohol free. It's brilliant. Kate, good to see you as well. Mabel, I've discovered the long forgotten art of feeling sleepy and needing my bed, not having to swagger to bed or waking up thinking, oh dear, I slept through another film, better go to bed now. God, I was talking to someone about this the other day, how I would be watching like a TV series or whatever on Netflix, and the next day I'd have to ask my wife, what happened in the end? Because I was drinking. I couldn't remember. Did you ever get that?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I always watch films twice, but I also had to blag it and pretend that I did remember certain things. So like Em used to say to me, so you know what we said about Tuesday? What do you think about it? And I was like, what again? Like, and then the way she got wind of what I was doing, I just had no idea, because it got to a certain point that I just shut completely off and I was in my own world and that, and I never used to remember anything at all. And the film thing was a joke, you know. It was like, to sneak into the bedroom and watch the last half an hour of the film because I had no idea at all.
Yeah, I had it all the time. Although I swear I suffer from short-term memory loss anyway, because I still struggle remembering things. Kay said, "How do you not drink around people who are drinking?" So I suppose we touched on that, didn't we? About actually thinking about when you feel ready, when you want to do it, setting some boundaries, being able to say no. Anything else you want to give on that? Being around people who drink, I'm fine with it these days.
I'm fine with it, and everyone's different again because with me, I told them straight away, and it was like I was proud. I remember being in a pub and rugby was on, and there was about 10 blokes at the bar, and I squeezed my way in and said, "Can I have a lime and soda, please?" And I almost wanted them to say, "What's the matter with you?" Blah blah blah, because I didn't care, but just do what's right for you. If it's uncomfortable drinking around people, as you said earlier, Simon, do different things. Arrange to meet them at a coffee bar, or go to the cinema, or go for a walk by the river, or whatever. If that whole thing doesn't feel right for you at the moment, just don't do it. It's your choice, and I think it's really important. It's really empowering as well to have that choice to make the
Yeah.
decisions. Well,
And you can forget, can't you? You think, well, I have to go. I have to be there. No, you don't.
yeah, you feel
And
obliged, and
yeah. And the other thing, I realized, with great clarity that there's things that I thought I liked that actually I don't really like very much. Kate on the panel Kate from Love Sober. And if you don't listen to their podcast, definitely check it because it's awesome. We were talking about house parties recently, and she said she absolutely hates them. And when I started thinking about it, I realized, yeah, so do I. I don't like house parties, drunk or sober. That's probably why I used to drink so much at them.
well, what I found with house parties, that I used to create them just to give me more of an excuse to drink. So Sundays were my best day, and I used to say, "Why don't we get blah blah over, and then they can bring blah." And Em used to say to me, "Look, I'll go shopping." I say, "No, actually, it used to cost me a fortune because I used to have to then get all the food and all the booze."
Yeah.
But I used to buy a case of white, case of red, case of beers, strong beers, some prosecco. Straight away, I was feeding people, and I was in bed by 7 o'clock because I was absolutely mullered. And then quite often I say, "Oh, what time did everyone go?" And she said, "Well, about midnight. We had such a lovely time." It's like now they don't drink anywhere near enough like that because I was constantly topping up their glass to justify my drinking.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we don't have a lot of it anymore because I don't suggest it.
But I used to do the same to a lesser extent. I'd feel uncomfortable if my wife wasn't drinking when I was drinking. So I would kind of enable her, but then I'd get kind of tetchy if she was having too much of my wine,
Oh
have a
yeah,
glass or two to make me feel better, but don't drink too much. Kimberly, you are day 19, which is incredible. Filled my
brilliant.
toolbox in the first few days. Thank goodness, because I've needed it and I've used it. I also have white knuckled it because where I've had to, it now doesn't feel like I want my wine like I used to. So something has clicked, and I appreciate all you guys are doing. But I've experienced several tragedies in the last 2 weeks. My community is mourning dozens of people, more tragedy than a person would experience in a decade or longer. I had brief periods of happiness, but overall I'm feeling numb and sad. And that's awful. I'm aware of all these feelings, but I want to numb the feelings. Do you ever want to numb when bad things happen? Don't worry, I haven't, Simon. Good, because I know we connect regularly, Kimberly. Thank you for telling me your story. So there's a good question. We were talking about this yesterday. Like, would you drink for £1 million if you've been sober for a while? We were all resoundingly no. But what if a tragedy comes up? What if something really traumatic happens and you kind of immediately jump back to that old neural pathway of, well, alcohol's going to solve the problem? What would you say to that, Dave?
I think we say all these situations that would you do it? Would you do it if this happened? I think if you're going to drink, you're going to drink. For me, people say to me, "How do you know you're not ever going to drink again?" And as I said to you yesterday, I kind of know because
Yeah.
it's like a rebirth for me. I mean, I'm 56 this year, and I would have probably been dead by the time I was 60 with the amount I was drinking. And all of a sudden, my whole life, I'm writing. We've got our lovely Zoom meetings we do on our Facebook group. My Instagram is, I love my Instagram, like you, Simon. It's growing, and we're working together on that. And Instagram for me is my recovery almost, you know,
Yeah.
or discovery, because it's just such a community of people that. So my life is my family life. My wife and me are connected again, and it's just, I wouldn't want to, whatever it is. I would just do something different, you know, deal with it. Because the other good thing about being sober is you learn different skills, don't you? You learn
Yeah.
how to face your emotions, where before it's that default setting of, oh, I've had a bad day, I'll need a drink, or I've had a brilliant day, I've had such a touch, I'm going to have a drink. There's always an excuse to have a drink. But when you give it up, you find other things, don't you? And you think, do you know what? I'm going to go for a nice drive, or I'm going to go out on my bike. I mean, I rode my bike from Greenwich to Paris last year.
You
And
got
I
lost.
mean, yeah, I was only going down to the park. But I would never have done that, because I wouldn't have put the training in. I wouldn't have wanted to do it, you know. And my events, you know, all my events, I wouldn't know you. I wouldn't know so many people in my life now that are so precious for me, that it's just, I can't tell anyone how brilliant it is to be
Yeah, and
sober.
there's the thing, and that would be the tragedy if you didn't have that. That would be the
Well,
tragedy.
yeah, and the thing for me and for you as well, we're, to a degree, we're accountable as well, because people look to us, and then all of a sudden, if one day you put up a post, I've relapsed, and it's like, whoa,
Yeah,
whoa,
I wouldn't.
you
Yeah,
know
I
what I
just.
mean?
Yeah, so making yourself accountable is a great way. And like Dave, you know, Dave kind of got me onto Instagram, and that's been a really good sort of tool for me as I've moved forward on my journey. You don't have to be public. You don't have to put your name on there if you don't want to. But also back to Kimberly's point, like trauma, obviously it can, you know, blindside you, comes out of nowhere. And
Yeah,
I think there is that moment of what we talked about earlier where you need to just sort of sit with things. You need to, you know, meditation can be amazing at those times, just to pause for a minute and collect your thoughts. And then it's that same thing as well. How would alcohol help the situation? You know, especially if you've got people around you who are looking for support during that traumatic time, for example. You're not going to be any use to them if you've been drinking. You're not going to be any use to them the next day. You know, you're probably going to be the one person, if you're alcohol free, who can actually, you know, be the pillar of strength in the whole thing. And obviously it's tough to experience two traumatic things in the space of 19 days. But I suppose, like we were saying earlier, if you could do it during that, wow, you're going to thrive, Kimberly.
yeah,
So
but also there's a reality. Like, you know, I'm always real, and there are some people that might just drink. And what do you do with that? You don't, like, for me, it's a journey, and like, there's someone we both know. We're doing her course actually. She fell off the wagon 7 times before she becomes sober. And what do you do with that? Do you think I'm a failure? I'm useless? I get people messaging me all the time, and they say I feel really guilty. And I say, look, it's snakes and ladders. Sometimes you have to climb up the ladders and slide down the snakes and whatever. And one day you get to the end. You know, I'm so lucky that I've I just gave up and that was it, which is rare. But it it doesn't make you a bad person if you do fall off the wagon. It's what you do with it after, isn't it? And what you say about your techniques and the mindset sometimes of just appreciating how difficult it is. But we're not perfect all the time, are we?
no.
What would you say about that?
Yeah, I agree. Like in terms of if someone has a setback, I think you're far better. Yeah, it's difficult to say to someone, "Oh, don't get emotional about it. Don't beat yourself up." But I had more day ones than I care to remember, and I definitely did get upset, and I definitely did beat myself up.
Yeah,
However, I definitely did learn each time. So although
yeah.
I did beat myself up, and it's easy, isn't it? Someone to, "Oh, don't be upset, don't be upset." Well, I'm feeling
No, yeah, but you can't say don't be upset because you can't control their emotions, can you?
exactly.
It's
But
understanding and showing empathy, and it's okay. Of course, you're going to be upset, but it's say it's what you do with it after, and
exactly.
sometimes, you need that stepping stone to go back to what it makes you stronger a lot of the time.
100%. Well, that's what I mean. And I think actually gathering the data around what happened and being like a bit of a detective and saying, well, what can I learn from this? What was the cue? What was the trigger that led to the
Yeah,
craving? Not the craving itself, the bit
yeah,
before it. Was it something visual? Was it a
yeah,
person? Was it in the environment you're in? And how can you make yourself safe and be stronger as you go forward? I almost think you have to have a few setbacks on the journey. And I know we've gone off topic from Kimberly, what she asked, but that is part of the journey of growth, I think, for most people.
yeah,
Penny said she used to invite people round so she could get drunk, same as you, Dave. Drank more to stay awake, but then ended up blacking out and not remembering the day or night. So, yeah, that's a theme. Kay says the quarantine is making her feel hopeless. I came here, got a gym membership, then they closed the next day, and I don't know what to think. So that's, I think, making the most of the situation and adapting, not having this kind of like when a horse has got blinkers on and thinking, well, that's the only way I'm going to become alcohol free is if I go to the gym every day instead. You've got to be adaptable to situations. We were just talking about trauma, and that's the same sort of thing. Funny enough, I was watching a video about the Navy SEALs last week, and it was all about mental toughness and the 5 qualities of mental toughness. One of them is probably remembering things, and I can only remember one of them. But one of them was being adaptable to a situation. Actually adapting to what the environment is. And I have to say, it's worth, if you're sort of struggling with things coming up or uncomfortable feelings or keep being pulled back to drinking, actually reading up about mental toughness and the training that the army put into mental toughness, because they actually break people's mental toughness to build it back up again so they come out stronger on the other side. There's some
yeah.
really interesting stuff online about it, and so much of it applies in what we're doing, but I think you learn it anyway as you go through this journey.
Yeah, and also like all your decisions you've made before have been under the influence of booze and that, and it's almost like you have to retrain yourself, you know, because as you know, you're dealing all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, Jesus, I've had to think about this, I've had to think about that, and then how do I deal with that because I haven't got my usual numbing cream? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's retraining yourself, and I just know for me, I'm completely different from when I was drinking.
Yeah, same here. It's a complete change. It's incredible. And it's the same with almost everyone we speak to. And I think, just seeing a few comments from Kay, and she's sort of saying, I still like to drink, and, saying things that, well, I can't go to the gym because the gym's closed and that's leading me back to drinking. So, Kay, I think a lot of that is probably coming from beliefs that you hold around drinking. So maybe you still believe, I can't enjoy myself unless I have a drink. I can't relax unless I have a drink. And we were talking on the sober sessions yesterday with Scott Pinyard from This Naked Mind about beliefs that can hold you back. And he gave an amazing tactic called the ACT technique. In short, it's awareness, clarity, turnaround. And it helps you change a limiting belief into a belief that empowers you. I would suggest joining the sober sessions group and watching back yesterday's video. Obviously I don't know you, Kay, but from what you said, I think you've still got beliefs that alcohol has some value, some benefit, is delivering you something good. If you unlock the beliefs, change the beliefs, you'll unlock the door to that self-built prison that you're in, and you can just walk right out of the door, because that's what happened to me. I know it sounds a bit like, whoa, how do I do that? Start exploring it, start kind of going on that journey, and you'll be amazed at what you find. Elizabeth, you said very nervous for Tuesday. I have a magnificent dinner party with 2 friends, and they've done heaps and heaps of prep, food and fine wines. What advice would you give for Elizabeth and her dinner party on Tuesday, Dave?
Well, I think make them aware that you're not drinking at the moment, and get yourself some good alcohol-free choices. But I also feel like we agree, Simon, don't we? If that's slightly triggering, is to not, take some soft drinks. But if you're that nervous, talk to them. And you know what you said, Simon, before about do something different.
Yeah,
If that's going to really cause a problem for you, you can say, actually, thanks for the invite, but I'm feeling slightly fragile around this, or I'm nervous about it. Do you know what I mean? It's you
But
don't
this is the
have
thing,
to
and
do it.
that can be really scary, because you know, Elizabeth's probably there now saying, no, I can't say no to this. They're my friends, and they'd be really offended if I didn't go. But what's more important, you know, to stay in alcohol free, or but
Yeah,
it's how you approach it, isn't it? If you approach them with a level of vulnerability and be really
yeah,
open and heart to heart, they'll only want to support you. Whereas if you just say, I'm not
yeah.
coming.
No, yeah, but if they're real friends, they'll understand as well. And maybe they might even suggest that they don't drink. You know, there's so many ways around it. And what I found for myself, I mean, I'm a 6-foot tattooed bloke, but I used to say to people, look, mate, I'm not drinking tonight. My son's 26, and whenever we go out, he never drinks, just to support me. You know, we
Brilliant.
go for curries, whatever we do, he will have a soft drink. You know, and I don't care really now if he drinks, but he doesn't anyway. You know, so it's communication, isn't it, before it happens? Because when you actually get to that point where you're turning up, oh, my little dog's coming. Who wants to see my dog? Look, oh, am I frozen now? Yeah. So basically, a bit like that sober toolbox, isn't it? Preparation. Talk to them, communicate.
If anyone wants to find you, Instagram's the best place, and it's at Sober Dave. Is that right?
Yeah. At Sober Dave on Instagram is where I post daily, and I did one today actually about where I was 2 years ago on a Sunday morning, the difference between then and now, and I made some interesting points actually. And does everyone on your Facebook group follow you on Instagram? Because you're mainly Facebook here, aren't you?
Yeah, well, there's 11,500 of us in the Facebook group, but there's only 3,800
Come on,
or
let's get
so.
your followers up, mate.
Yeah.
Follow Simon on Instagram. Come on, we want to get him to 10,000 by the end of the year.
10,000 is the holy grail of Instagram. So yeah, if you follow me, that would be awesome. And Dave's website's right above his head as well. So if you want to check him out there, he's pretty awesome. And also you do like free calls with people if they want like a 15-minute coaching call. Do you? Is that something you're still doing?
Yeah, I've kind of stopped that now, but yeah, I'm doing coaching in that now. So
so
yeah,
watch this space.
Yeah, and it's all on my website. So
awesome.
I do that, and yeah, and our Zoom meetings as well. We're doing every Saturday at 4 o'clock, aren't we? And we have a different guest. I mean, Scott Pinyard just, he was fantastic, wasn't he? He's got a much better beard than me.
His beard's incredible.
Yeah, we got a great guest, Clemmy Telford, on next week. Hopefully, Charlie Brooks is coming on, isn't she? Remind me of other people. We got a list, haven't we?
Yeah, there's a huge list. I'm trying to think who else there is. There's absolutely loads. I don't, again, my memory's terrible, but yeah, Clemmy Telford.
But the good thing about it is that we tackle a different topic each time, don't we?
Yeah,
we've covered mental health, myths around alcohol, cravings, triggers,
false beliefs. We did yesterday.
Really informative group session, isn't it? So.
It's brilliant. And also, like William Porter, who wrote Alcohol Explained, yeah, he doesn't do a lot of kind of lives or videos, and he's on our panel every week. And what that man doesn't know about the brain and the science behind drinking, I mean, he is unbelievable. He's so different in terms of what he adds to the mix that I love hearing what his insights and what he has to say. So yeah, if you're not in the Sober Sessions Facebook group, it's linked with this group. You can find it in one of the menus, like other groups, I think it says, and you can join straight through there. But all right, thanks so much for coming on, Dave. I'm going to go and have some breakfast.
Pleasure, mate. Yeah,
and
thanks guys for watching as well.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming on. If you've got any other questions or comments, just tag myself or Dave and we'll come right back to you. And we'll see you all soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Simon.